Hi there, Randy Green here, and welcome to the HAL Approach to the higher order senses, or as most people call them, the extrasensory perception, ESP, or the higher order abilities to work with expanded awareness. There are many different ways of perceiving this, and you should know that this podcast series is made outside the realm of normal or generic spirituality. It is from the HAL Approach, and I am making this podcast series, this course material, after I have done the progression sciences, which means I have already made the highest level and are now stepping a little bit down to begin with the basic level so that I can help you to build up to the abilities that are needed to technically work with the higher order sciences as they are supposed to. So we are moving backwards or going the other way around compared to most people. They talk about clairvoyance, telepathy, remote viewing, the ability to psychic energetic abilities, often within what we could call the human perspective of it. But when we talk about extrasensory perception, or ESP, we are talking about all of the abilities we have above and beyond and way ahead of the normal senses. Not just the sixth sense, it is what we could call the developed skills that goes with the higher order energetic levels of our five senses. And I will explain that in the basic course material. Here I am making an introduction to the whole approach to the higher order senses, as I want to work with these different layers of what it means to utilize and develop or activate the higher order senses, and what the goal of this is not just about, ooh, I'm clairvoyant. It actually has a purpose, similarly as our five senses that are tied to the physical experience of reality, the tangible experience of reality that goes with the electrochemical and the electromagnetic energies, are tied to our ability to operate, exist, and perceive, as well as investigate the physical reality as we know it from general sciences. When we talk about the high order senses, we are moving beyond what general sciences know. We are moving into the subtle realms of the other worlds, where we will then learn to develop the higher order levels of our five senses, meaning that we will end up having 10 types of senses. We will have the physical senses for this reality, and we will develop the five higher order senses that goes with the other worlds, meaning we will develop what truly means to have double awareness, where we both exist as humans inside this reality, navigate and operate and investigate the reality features as they present themselves to us as part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And at the same time, we're also able to work with what I have chosen to call density energies in my older material, but are now shifting into more and more calling it holographic energetic. And the reason why I choose to do that is because that is more in alignment with the higher order sciences and the holographic energetic architecture that is behind reality, as well as behind our physical form. In my books, and as well as in the transition sciences and in the progression sciences, I use the word density energies. And that is because that is what we could call a type of bridge building to known material that were already out there, that began to be seeded in the 1990s, talking about densities and dimensions. And in my book, Source of Humanity, I try to distinguish between densities and dimensions, because densities are another way of saying a different vibrational level, a different type of oscillation, not frequencies. Frequencies are tied to electromagnetic energy. We also use the word oscillation within the frequency spectrum, but we are trying to make a kind of a distinguish between different types of energies. In the older spiritual teachings, it's called subtle energy. So we have many different approaches to this. It's called etheric, I call it the biofield. It's called astral. I call that, and I divide that from the emotional field into the subconscious, into the astral plane, and then from there into the artificial fourth dimension, which is tied to our system, which I will explain in the basic course material, how that operates, as well as going into what's called the original outer domain configuration that also has gate systems into the fourth dimension, where we also can operate. But here we're beginning to talk about a different type of aspect, because what is a dimension? Just an aspect or a feature to something that is already present or within our range of perception. So it's another dimension. A cup has different dimensions. It doesn't mean it's otherworldly. It just means it has different dimensions, as we have inside this reality when we talk mathematical features we can use to try and explain reality as we know of it, using equations and other types of mathematical tools. When we go into the other worlds and we go into the realms or the reality fields that are beyond this physical world we are currently part of, the mathematical feature stops to exist. The known sciences no longer operates there, and that's why we're struggling or debating or splitting hairs over different types of terminology that will explain that in the best way possible. In the older spiritual teaching systems, a lot of symbolic language we used for the astral plane, typically connected with water. The mental plane often connected with air, which is actually not correct, but that's because the lower level type of mental processing faculties are often associated with air, but later on it is changed into fire and breath, and the science of how to work with the breath are connected to blood, and blood is technically connected to the vessel, so that is more connected to some of the features of the heart more than it's and the lungs, more than it's actually connected with some of the features of the head that goes with electric energy that changes into different aspects of transformative processes, which then becomes fire. Anyways, these are I have talked some about that in the free material, as well as other places on the HAL Academy YouTube channel, where I dive into a little bit of the esoteric teaching systems and the LSA Bailey material, just to use one. I could have chosen Blavatsky, but she was a little bit too obscure for me. I have deliberately chosen not to use any of the other systems I have investigated. I have put material out on where do I have my information from. I've studied many different angles of the esoteric materials, as well as my own in-depth psychodynamic processes, and moving from psychodynamic processes into what we call the explorative psychoenergetic processes that moves into the realms of the other worlds. So with that, we also have the basic understanding that I am a psychotherapist. I work with clients for many years. I'm also a trained and formally educated healer. I have had clients for many years working as a healer, not doing that currently though. Might take that up later on, but not now, since I have chosen to focus on producing course material that will teach people how to work with their higher order capacities and what it means within a context of a different type of science, which I call the higher order sciences, or the higher order reality sciences. We could put it that way. Why have I chosen to do it this way? Because from the very get-go, I had this basic understanding that the spiritual sciences had met their limitations. And any system of thought has a kind of an inbuilt deadline or an inbuilt limitation, as you can go so far with this system and then something, sorry about that, something else must appear. And that is both due to changes in what we call cultural settings, reality settings, the human awareness settings, the collective changes, sciences changes, human change. So we can't keep clinging on to what we could say the old ways of working with things, since they are determined by time, the era, as well as the culture of that era, as well as the consciousness potentials that era had. So if we keep clinging on to the spiritual teachings that were provided for humanity or were discovered or rediscovered and reintegrated 2,500 years ago or 3,000 years ago or just 200 years ago, we will work with ideas and thought forms that technically belong to another age and belongs to another type of humanity and a different type of consciousness potentials within other forms of ideas and thought forms and belief systems and versions of science. So we need to move on. We need to develop, we need to progress, we need to review the older teaching systems and technically update them without losing the ground potentials they have. But for those of you who are doing this, you also know that my version of this is very different than most, since I am incorporating what we call the alien agenda into these spiritual teaching systems, as well as what we call galactic history. But my approach to it, as I recall it personally from my own past lives, as well as why I have accessed via the holographic teaching system, that is a holographic energetic interactive simulation program that is tied to our holographic energetic architecture that is behind this reality field. So they're already there. You see, we are now moving way beyond any other version of the high order senses that have been put out so far. So how do I combine this futuristic holographic energetic architecture, construction, science understanding with the current understanding of clairvoyance and telepathy, remote viewing, and other of the abilities that people have shown features of having? Overall, I would like to call them psychic energetic features. By that denoting we have the normal psychodynamic processes of the emotional and mental field that are tied to everyday human awareness. And then we move beyond into the higher order levels of awareness that then become the psychic energetic. So that's what I will try to bridge from the normal everyday awareness into the higher order awareness. Trying to explain what it means to have double awareness and how we navigate with the double awareness, which is something that I have not gone into details with in the progression sciences. It is mentioned in the whole philosophy book and my other material. It is alluded to over and over and over again. But since it was most important to get the sciences produced first as course material, I am now returning to, okay, then this is what we are aiming to be able to work with and understand these sciences. How do we then apply them to the base program, sciences and awareness? Not as much going and say, oh, I want to apply it to the general sciences, explain how the neural network works with the double awareness and how they go into the holographic energetic architecture of our neural network and our brain capacities. I have touched ground with that in the psyche as energy, the psyche as processes, as well as keeping the psychic energetic balance. That are the first three courses of the transition sciences. But I will allude to it and I will work with it from a different angle, saying, okay, this is the basic understanding of how to work with the high order senses. And by that, we are going back to basics, meaning that I will work with it from the angle that I could have worked with, for instance, if I had made this course material 10 years ago, where I was in that realm of developing my high order senses and how I did that, because that is what is not explained much in the progression sciences, where I already developed this, which took me about 10 years to get up to the level that I wanted these higher order senses to function, meaning that to get our higher order senses really as a tool and as a skill set that we can work with, we need to train these, develop these, progress these, and create and reconstruct the architecture in our brain that is able to work with the higher order energies. As also taught by the esoterics, you need to build the architecture, you need to build the abilities that allows you to connect to the higher order realities. Although, for instance, the LSAB material connects then to a different type of configuration and a different type of reality. that is tied into the old Hindu teachings, as well as some of the newer interpretation of the Buddhist teachings within what we call the Sanskrit system, and not the Theravada system, which Blavatsky worked more with. But we can also question whether or not that is an accurate system. And I'm working a little bit I've worked with that in my take on Buddhism, which is a podcast series you can find on the HAL Academy YouTube channel for free. I'm also working on a book right now where I will try to go into, okay, what does the holographic energetic teaching system actually say about the ideas that Siddhartha Gautama had when he had his experiences and his process of enlightenment, and where he developed his extrasensory perception and abilities, as so many others have done after him, not because he was some specific type of teacher. My claim is that we all have the abilities to do the exact same thing. However, many of the forerunners of these abilities were often seen as teachers or gurus or rabbis or something uniquely that were kind of a semi or demigod, compared to today, where we have more and more humans that are showing signs of having the abilities. And how are they then to what we could call crystallize or make more efficient these abilities? How do we move above and beyond the astral plane that is, in my terminology, similar to the distortion field connected to our emotional field and the subconscious, and a crossing between the electrochemical and the higher order type of holographic energetic architecture, which is in that in-between state becomes distortion because it's not really utilized correctly. And at the same time, we are using some of our higher order holographic energy system, energy units, but not in the rightful way. And because of that, distortion is the end result. That is also to be taken into consideration when we do want to achieve higher order senses. A lot of meditation, contemplation, deep theta states are to be utilized, and learn how to be in these altered states of awareness without creating distortion, and at the same time doing the necessary clearing work as we go into contemplative, visionary type of states of awareness, where we are working with what the brain is producing as a higher order level of dream state, where we also explore and discover that some of our dreams are actually not dreams, but are residuals of distortion, are residuals of past lives, or as residuals of imbued different types of alteration programs that are also going on within humanity. So this is the tough wake-up call to what the higher order senses are and what it really means to be what we could call an awakened human, in my perspective and from the HAL approach. And that is what I want to unfold in this course material. I want to go in depth with some of these aspects of what it means to have higher order senses. And it is going to be a process like everything else I'm doing. I begin at one angle. I create the text material from the already existing material I have, combine it in new ways, explain it in new ways, even though it's the same text material. Each layer can be unfolded in different ways. There are multiple layers to all forms of higher order teaching systems, all depending on what energetic level we work with the text material. We can unravel and discover new layers of it, new aspects of it, or new dimensions, new features that apply to our different perception level, as well as new abilities that come with that level of understanding. Similarly, as we know from general science, where we say, well, you have an atom, science has discovered different layers of the atom. They have discovered different versions of the atom. They have discovered different approaches to perceive the atoms as they develop their technologies and their mathematical equations. I'm not saying we're going to do that. I'm just saying that it's not just because you studied the text in one version does not mean it applied to all versions. Each level of our work with whatever information system we dive into have different energetic layers, and each layer is connected to different aspects of the holographic energetic layers of the neural network, which means that you can work with, let's just do it within the general science understanding. If you work with a specific type of electrochemical process from the instinctual layer or the little brain, you will have what we could call the automated types of processes in the body. But if you work with the same type of electrochemical processes from the limbic system, you will then tie it into the emotional fields and the processes that are going hand in hand with what we understand as feelings and our interpretation of feelings, which then goes into what we could call both thalamus and the memory system and the frontal lobe system, where we then begin to work with the dopamine system, reward and understanding of reality within the scheme of what do we do so we feel comfortable, our comfort zone, our schematic of this is how I work best, this is how I am best functioning in the world, this is how I would like to see myself, this is how I recall what I am in earlier experiences. That goes with the frontal lobe and the memory system, and by that are working with a different layer of the same type of energy. The same go with the higher order senses. And that's why I can use my material again and again from different angles, explaining into new concepts and new ideas of what it means to work with the higher order senses. So the basic understanding of this series of course material that will go into many different layers, I am exploring the different levels of the higher order senses, what this means, how we can use it, the realms we connect to, which is also part of the 31 realms of the Buddhist cosmology. Not that I'm going in that direction, because that specific thought system and a specific system of ideas that not necessarily apply to our culture today, since it were seeded into this reality some 600 years BC or BCE, because it is common area, right? We don't need to do the whole ideas of within the Christian belief systems either. So how do we work with these ideas, extrapolating them from the spiritual teaching systems, the Buddhist teaching systems, and all other types of New Age teaching systems, and look at them as normal human features we all have access to within the framework of the understanding of the original solar system humanities, the advanced civilization that used to exist within this realm, this quadrant of our universal structure, where I claim, along as with others, mostly have looked at it from the humanoid angle, from the other constellations, including the Balaam material and the Blavatsky material and the Buddhist teaching materials that are tied to the lunar races, the Syrian races, and some of the other humanoid groups that have operated inside our reality as part of some of the colonies that have been here in this quadrant, where I work from the angle of the original solar system humanities that were part of what I call the LPU project, the Less Progressive Universal Structure project, that took part and was seeded into this reality field and further back, long before the humanoid races even came into existence. So I'm talking about what I call true humans. From that, different features led to what we could call a regression of the original universal lineages, of which 3 lineages became what we understand as the humanoids. And the less progressive universal structure was engineered to assist these 3 lineages to undo some of the features that they had brought with them from the previous universal structure, where some succeeded to a larger degree. These are what are called true humans, and some had inbuilt flaws that they still needed to work with, and these are the ones that became the humanoids. You will then say, well, are the true humans then better than the humanoids? No, unfortunately. A lot of things happen along the way in transition, and we are now all in the same boat trying to figure out, okay, how do we then go back to and explore what it really means to be a citizen of this solar system? So with that, I will level out the differences and say some have what we call a humanoid-based type of holographic energetic structure, and others have what we call a true human holographic energetic architecture or structure that works in different ways. And this is mostly what I'm interested as an original scientist of the Pillar Project under the Solar System Humanities, where I work with more the what we call the identical features between the humanoid holographic energetic architecture and consciousness potentials, as well as the true human holographic energetic architecture and our consciousness potentials, and where can I build bridge between these two different type of features. The progression sciences and the transition sciences is my attempt to bridge these two different features into one system that becomes the basic understanding of this is how you can work with the holographic energy structure, whether you are humanoid or human, or true human. So that goes with the template I have engineered for that purpose. And I already began that project as part of the Pillar Project, how to assist the three lineages to get back into what I, in the Soul of Humanity, call the metaverse, the holographic metaverse. We could call it something else. This is just words, because most of these higher order sciences and realities move beyond our current concepts and our current type of language. So it's not that this is what it's called, because of course in the original Solar System Humanities, language is actually not part of who and what we are. We are completely telepathic, and by that rarely use what we understand as language. We do use what we call sound and light fields that goes with vibration and radiation. So this is where we begin to work. It's not sound, it's vibration, it's oscillation or density. We work with radiation, that is what we call light. Light is frequency spectrum. Radiation is when we go into the holographic energetic features, where it begins to radiate. It has specific dynamics that then goes into code systems. And there we begin to understand how vibration and code system can work together as part of a holographic energetic structure. These are some of the concepts I want to try and implement to the understanding of high order senses and how they apply to the holographic energetic architecture and what it there means to work with our high order senses from the perspective of radiation and vibration instead of light and sound as we know of it, where we go beyond the verbal communication and begin to go into what we call energetic, interactive, holographic communication. And that's something entirely else. And instead of communication, we could call it interconnectedness. So this is where we begin to understand, okay, now we are in a different angle of what it means to develop our higher order senses and moving into the higher order sciences, explaining so that we can really begin to develop our extrasensory perception within the framework of being a higher order civilization, part of universal structures that have many different features that are belonging to a vast range of civilizations that we want to become part of. So this is where we begin to understand the higher order senses are to be applied to our everyday awareness, because we want to move into the ability to perceive and operate inside the other realms of existence that we have the possibility to do so. And with that, I have dived into all sorts of teaching systems to find the snippets and what we call common within these systems, and as well as a psychotherapist and a healer, and myself being a clairvoyant and telepathic, and all of the abilities, including remote viewing, that I have developed in my processes, my deep inner meditative, contemplative theta states, with energy work, as well as clearing work, as well as insights and visions, and all the full range of all of the experiences I have had with my own inner work. So that is where I'm drawing this information from. It is mostly based upon my own experiences, my experiences from the other worlds, my experiences in communication, telepathic contact with other civilizations, my work on past timelines, as well as my work with past lives, as well as my ability to access and remote view different realities, connect to the holographic energetic teaching system of the original Pillar Project, my background as a scientist as part of these Pillar Projects under the solar system civilizations and progressive sciences, as well as going into current day interference and not collaboration, but interference from different groups of extraterrestrial races that are here, not belonging to this system, but are making claims of actually having access and being part of this system due to allowances that were granted to these civilizations and races during the Atlantean colonies and that time period within our solar system. So these are the majority of these are the humanoids. So with that understanding, you here have a basic introduction to the whole approach to the high order senses and where I want to go with this course material. The idea is that this can both be embarked on if you already have done the progression sciences, but it can also be the startup for those of you who want to move into the progression sciences. In this way, there is no perfect order since I am doing this after I've done the progression sciences, but it does allude to the thought processes and ideas that I am presenting in the progression sciences, but here I'm just stepping down a bit and work with the skill sets that we need inside the base program to be able to technically do the progression sciences, but also just from a general standpoint of what are the high order senses and how can we approach these from just scratch as anybody who wants to move beyond the spiritual sciences and move into the understanding, okay, what are the high order sciences? What are the high order senses? And what do I experience when I begin to do deep visionary contemplative states of awareness? What does it mean to meditate? What does it mean to work energetically? And what does it mean from that basic level to do the energy work? I have in the whole basic and advanced clearing works course material operated in the basic 4D energy work. There I work with the very basic level of it that ties into the physicality and the emotional field. Whereas in the 5D advanced energy work, I work with the mental field as it is presented into artificial fifth dimension. And in the advanced clearing work courses 1 to 4, I work with the removal of some of the older types of colonizing old world order technology that I explain both in the Souls of Humanity as well as in the book Tarology, as well as understanding the old stellar souls. So the material is ripe for the next level of the clearing work and the next level of the inner work that is possible when we do meditation, when we do contemplative states, how we work with the neural network, and how we work with the double hand position on the heart field, connecting the heart and the mind together in what's called in Buddhist teaching system, the chitta level, the heart-mind level. So I will allude to some of the practices that are within the Buddhist teaching system as the foundation to work with the higher order senses, because I find that to be more conducive than the spiritual teaching systems that are aligned with the chakra teachings. And these I also made a podcast series on the HAL Academy, as well as the Higher Order Density 1 Work Institute YouTube channel, where I'm working beyond the chakra system, because my journey began within the chakra system, and I quickly discovered that that was actually standing in the way, since the chakra system and the spiritual teaching systems are connected to the prohibiting technologies and the old world order colonizing spiritual programs. So therefore, I move beyond that and say, okay, if I step even further back, can I find something else I can work with? And no, the Buddhist teaching system is not the perfect one either, because that's tied to the lunar monads, as it said in the LSA Bailey material, the ones that came from the lunar scheme, and they came here as refugees during the time of Atlantis. So that's not the perfect system either. The humanoid teaching systems are not perfect either, because they are mostly aligned and are oriented towards the humanoids of the three lineages that did not reach their potentials or their full potentials as they were supposed to inside this reality field. To begin with, they spilled over without the level that was necessary. So that's not perfect either. The true human capacities and what we used to be are long gone, and I have to really dig deep to get back to timelines where that was working as it was supposed to, and that is typically what has been referred to as the Hyperborean or the early stages of the Lemurian period. So that goes so far back. I might be able to tap into it, but the human vessels, as well as the ways that humanities were at that time inside the solar system, is so dissimilar to who and what we are today, so that we can't really use the configurations and the energy systems and consciousness potentials that were unfolded in these early stages of our solar system. So we are standing here with the understanding, we stand under it literally, and it's not about understanding either, but we have a lot of snippets from different time periods. We have different holographic energetic architectures. We have different types of civilizations. We have different types of technologies and holographic energetic developmental programs. And we have who and what we have become today and what has led to who and what we are today. We have the distortion fields from our many different types of incarnations inside the solar system and onward and so forth. So it's not a simple task just to say, develop clairvoyant abilities. What are they? How can they be utilized? On what level are they utilized? For what purpose and function are they utilized? And the same goes for the telepathy and onward and so forth. And that is what I want to explore. That is what I want to go into details with. So those of you who already have the abilities, you will investigate them one more time and look at them and say, okay, if they are to be developed into a different level of conceptualization and science that goes beyond the spiritual programs, that goes beyond the levels that I've already worked with them, then what are they then to be worked for, and how can I then work with them in what we call a high order scientific manner? And that's also why my idea is to go into some of the typical spiritual tools and make them more scientific and say, what is this actually? How can we use these ancient tools, and can we use them at all today? And if so, how? And for what purpose and what function? And what are they perhaps the distorted version of originally, such as the astrology that actually goes back to some of the original Syrian Celtic races and their ability to work with the holographic energetic network and to create nodal points from where there could be an access point into this reality, and what that meant, what timeline that would allude to, and what type of configuration that would be granted for that type of genetics inside this system. So with that little introduction here, I think you have got enough to work with and contemplate upon if you want to embark on the different courses that I will make when the time is ripe, which means I am starting this process before I've made the course material. It will be a process as usual. The material will be there when it's done. The courses will, until they're done, be presented as a possibility. They are seeded in via this in little introduction. They will stand as a possibility in progress course material, and once it's done, it will be available for purchase when I have made the entire podcast series, as well as work through the layers I want to work through to reach the ideas and the potentials of these ideas with this course material. Thank you.